Shalom, my dear friends. How are you all? This is Hanoch, broadcasting from the city of Harish in Israel. Today is the second day of the month of Kislev, which is the 18th day of November, 5784. I wanted to give you some news updates, or rather, my commentaries on news from Israel in the past week. This is the week of Parshat Toldot, and maybe we'll try to relate some of the things to the Parsha. Amazing Parsha, talking about the life of Yitzchak and his activities here in the land of Israel with his wife Rivka and his sons Yaakov and Esav and all the exciting neighbors. So recently besides being the war in Gaza, and besides having to fight people in the north a little bit, fortunately not too much, but not insignificant, firing some things in the north. Also in Jenin, in the Arab city of Jenin, which is in Israel, not so far from Harish here, over here in the Shomron, in Samaria. So there, as often has been the case, there's been some fighting there recently too. In fact, the IDF attacked some terrorists there with a drone. They attacked them with a drone. So, I just, it's just like crazy that within places that are within Israel, we also have these battles going on. And of course, as you know, my general feeling is that's a mistake to have these places under Palestinian Authority control. The reason Israel is fighting people with drones there is because the Palestinian Authority does not succeed in controlling these terrorists from these various groups, Hamas and other groups as well, Islamic Jihad and all the other exciting groups. That was one of the main points of the Palestinian Authority, is supposed to control these groups. So I don't know why we maintain the farce of the Palestinian Authority, but we shouldn't have had in the first place. But that's my thoughts on that. Another thought: our Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, our gallant and valiant Defense Minister, one of the men in the black shirts, as I call them, as you know, our Defense Minister and our Prime Minister and Benny Gantz, who's also in the War Cabinet, have taken to wearing these black shirts all the time. So, as the man in the black shirt said, he was asked by reporters, well, what's going to happen after Hamas is removed from power in Gaza? Who's going to be in control then, right? This is obviously the big question, which should really be thought of in the beginning. He says, well, I don't know, but it's not going to be Hamas and it's not going to be us, that's for sure. That's for sure. It's not going to be us or Hamas. Like, hello, can you give us a little more in-depth, give a little more in-depth thought to this question than that? But we see that willy-nilly, hopefully, despite their reservations and reluctance to face these questions, they're going to be forced to face them, and hopefully they're going to have to come to the right conclusions as well, namely that Israel has to be in control. Because we already know that the Palestinian Authority is not a good option. And even 10 years ago, Ehud Barak, as I mentioned last time, already asked Mahmoud Abbas then if Israel would theoretically recapture Gaza, which they did not do at any point in the past, unfortunately, would PA be willing to take it over? And he said no. And I'm sure the answer is still no. And so they're faced with that. They can't pawn it off on anyone else. Now, who are you going to bring in? You're going to bring in a Girl Scout troop there to administer Gaza? I mean, who's going to take care of Gaza? Obviously, only Israel can be the people who can responsibly manage Gaza. And I hope Mr. Gallant realizes that eventually, and I think he's starting to. I think they're all starting to. The leaders are saying, well, it's going to have to be a while. It's going to be a period of transition. Yeah. Just like period transition in Yehuda and Shomron is still going on for 55 years. Sometime you have to say, it's time for us to take control. In any case, to make a slightly cynical remark about Mr. Gallant, A number of years ago, I think they wanted to appoint him to be the chief of staff or something, and as part of the vetting process, they found out that he unauthorizedly took over control of a number of dunams on his yishuv, on his town in the north, to pave a driveway to his house. So I would just like to say, Mr. Glenn, if you're able to take over a number of dunams for your own driveway, then maybe you can also take over Gaza for Israel. It's not so much harder. You don't have to be afraid to exercise sovereignty over something. Let's talk about the Parsha a little bit. Yitzchak Avinu, our father Yitzchak, he faces a lot of the same challenges that his father Abraham did. People want to take his wife, he has to pretend it's his sister, all the stories. And it says also that he dug wells, and as part of his industrial efforts, he dug wells, and the neighbors around there came and they stopped up the wells. And they said, well, it's because of security concerns, because maybe the enemy's going to come here and they can use your wells. But the main bottom line was, as it says later in the Parsha, simply they envied him, and they didn't want him to be successful. The main thing of stopping up his wells is that he should not be successful. It reminds me of what happened in Gush Katif when, foolishly, Israel pulled out all of its settlers there in 2005, 8,000 to 10,000 settlers, and gave over all the Yeshuvim, like a dozen or 15 Yeshuvim were given over to the Palestinian Authority there, and they had beautiful greenhouses there where they used to grow cherry tomatoes and things like that. And when the Arabs of Gaza got there, what did they do? Did they take them and keep growing? Say, yes, now we're going to grow tomatoes. No, they just torched the whole place. They just stopped up the whole well, because it wasn't about the land, it was about just that the other people shouldn't have it. I heard a good story in the Parsha sheet from a week ago from my old yeshiva, Mechon Meir, in Jerusalem. Rav Dov Bigun Shlita, the Rosh Yeshiva, he said that his family used to live down in Nitzarim, which was in Gush Katif, in the area of Israel around Gaza, which Israel had control of from 1967 till 2005. And he said his grandson was born and grew up there in Nitzarim, and he was part of the people who were expelled from there in 2005. And now he's in the army, he's in the Miluim, and he was his unit reconquered that part. And he called his family and said, Mom and Dad or family, we came home. I've come home. So because now the Israeli army is occupying the place which was once the Yeshuva Yitzarim. And so Rav Bigun gave a blessing to his grandson and to all the other expellees of Gush Katif, that they should also be zoka to come back to their homes. So we pray that indeed is what's going to happen. Speaking of Mechon Meir, it's very difficult. In the same issue, there was condolences wish to Rav Yoram Eliyahu, who I used to study with, Rav Cook, in the evenings sometimes at Mechon Meir. His son was a 25-year-old reservist, father of two. He was killed in the fighting there, and it's just a horrible thing when you hear about these things happening. The terrible price we're paying, and it's all part of this difficult period, which we have to try to stay strong for the sake of all of the people who lost, the families who lost their loved ones, and for all of it. So we have to stay strong. I went into the park area here. There's a very nice park in Charish I go to put my tefillin on in the morning before going to daven. And about 2 mornings ago I went there.